Danielle and I go to Forest Hills Northern, and I'm here to talk about personal space bubbles. More specifically, my own journey with my own personal space bubble, and I'll tell you why you should care later. So I used to tell people that my personal space bubble was not actually a bubble, but a box. And it was a box made of metal, and it had spikes. And if you came too close, it would explode all over you, and you'd probably get like cut or something. And this wasn't the most healthy relationship with human contact as one normal person maybe should have. And I realized that over time, maybe I should try to change this about myself. And it's debatable whether or not people can change, but I think I've changed this part of myself pretty reasonably. So what I used to think about when I felt somebody coming too close to me, or I felt a hand on my shoulder, was this sort of overwhelming sense of dread, disgust, abhorrence even. And I would like us all to look back into our collective memory of Harry Potter and the bubblehead charm, and how they could cast a charm and suddenly you would be able to breathe underwater. And that's how it felt for me, to be within my own space of personal space. So if somebody came too close, it felt as if they were trying to rip off this ability to breathe in this unknown space. And that led to a feeling of almost like suffocation or drowning. I would get very nervous, sweaty palms, knees or arm spaghetti, the Eminem song, you know. and so it was very uncomfortable all the time. And I would like to, and so I tried to start, I realized this at a very young age that maybe it wasn't the most common thing. And so I have these series of mantras that I tell myself to try to get back on that ideal path that everyone tries to get on. And the first one that I would like to tell you about is about reaching. Or I would like to tell you about how you should know everyone, rather. So when I was younger, I had this sort of grand idea that I could know every single person I met with like the best sort of feeling where you just know someone completely and you can just be their best friend all the time. And I was pretty young, I was like 11, so with a little bit of time I realized maybe this wasn't the most realistic. But anyway, looking back on that now, there's this word that I really want to share with you all. And it's a word that's from the obscure Dictionary of Sorrows, written by John Coing. It's this amazing linguistic thing where he just creates words for feelings that we all know but don't have names for in English. And the one I want to tell you about is sonder. And that is the realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid and as complex as your own. I like to add on a little bit and you'll never be able to understand the complexities of this life. It's really prevalent to me because I look around all the time and I see all these people. I see all your faces even, and I don't know anything about you, really. And so I always wonder, what's going on? What's underneath that? What would happen if I gave you more than a cursory glance? And that's what I kind of try to invite myself to do. And there's this poem that I wrote, which I'm going to share with you, just a little line because I like it and I think it's prevalent. And it goes, look at that laugh. Look at that smile. Look at those eyes. Look at the rose you always drive. A little nervous. And it's looking at the things that you see already and trying to understand and to reach out into that, past that bubble of space you keep around yourself, to contain yourself, to keep safe. The second thing I would like to tell you about is that if you reach out, the world will reach back. They will. And that's really hard because sometimes when you reach out, when I try to reach out of my personal space bubble in the beginning, I'd reach out and my hands would stretch out and there would be nothing to grasp. There would be no one there to hold my hand because I kept telling people that if you came too close, I would probably bite you, so please don't. So reaching out is hard, and that feeling of rejection is something that can often deter you from trying to reach out of this bubble at all. And in fact, it encouraged me personally to fortify this bubble of not allowing anyone too close. And so, but if you give it enough time, and if you allow for the world to maybe have a hand into your own personal space bubble, maybe close it a little tighter, then you will get something back from all of this reaching and giving that you give. I think that's something that's really important to remember, even just in your personal life. I don't know what your personal bubble is, but for me, it was just even the physical contact of humans. My mom always would tell me that I'm quite like a cat. I would hiss if you came too close or try to pet me without knowing, so if you come up behind my shoulder, I'm just hey, don't touch me, please. But I like to think of myself rather as this cat, graceful, poised, elegant, confident, just so put together all the time. I just wanted to brag a little bit. That was it, honestly. After all of this trying trying to like reach out of my personal space bubble, pop my own bubble, try to get out of this sort of like weirdness of not allowing anyone close, but at the same time wanting everyone to be my friend and wanting to be this sort of reachable, attainable person, and also wanting to reach out, but detesting when anyone came too close, is that it may not be okay, but it will always turn out fine. And this is something that I urge you to try to remember. And I really want you to try to think about the difference between okayness and fineness. Okayness is, it's not bad, it's going well, laissez le bon temps rouler. Just like, have a good time, it's okay, so I'm doing good. That's what you say to people when they ask you how you are. But fineness is, you're not falling apart. The world is not ending. Nothing's shattering beneath your feet. There's no earthquake, the volcano's not erupting, you're fine. I'm fine, I promise. And that's something that I think is worth remembering, just to always be sure that you have something. Even if you're trying to breach your personal bubble and it makes you feel sick to your stomach, and every time somebody would maybe tap my shoulder, or I'd go in for a side hug to try to express myself like, I'm going to miss you until I see you next. That uncomfortable feeling that comes along with it is just a journey that I have to take to try to be able one day to reach out and give comfort to someone when they need it. So, thinking about all of this reaching out and reaching into your uncomfortable abyss of nothingness after your personal space bubble made of stones and brick and adamantium like Wolverine, it's important to take a breath, to step back, to take a breath. Just go maybe put on your cloak of your personal bubble, take a minute and just like, it's all good. You can have that moment to yourself and not allow anyone to try to contact you or let the world's ideologies in for a few days. And I'd like you to think about, for a moment, these pretty fascinating but ultimately believable statistics, in my opinion, is that in 2010, the AARP, which is the American Association for Retired Persons, said that 35% of adults over 45 are considered lonely. And also that, like, what is it? Like 20% of Americans define themselves as lonely. I believe that too. That feeling of seclusion away from everyone else that is just constantly around us. It's like a chronic sickness of feeling apart in our culture. And then also that as of 2013, 27% of people are living alone. And all of this separateness, this individualized society, kind of creates a pattern for us to like come into ourselves and not have that ability to reach out, to feel connected, to have someone there when you need comfort, to reach outside of your personal bubble. It makes it more difficult. It makes it yourself is the only side of the world. And you can't see out of that bubble because you maybe put up more walls. And actually, instead of it being a bubble, it's now a planet. And now you're a universe. And now you're so far away, you can never cast a line outside. But you can look past that. You just have to reach out yourself. Just touch, just a little bit. Maybe just like, hey, how's it going? Let's finger high five instead of high five. Just honest. And this is the last kind of quote mantra I'd like to give you. I really like this quote. And it's, love is the meeting of two solitudes that meet, protect, and greet each other. You can allow for your personal space bubble to maybe condense a little bit so you can say hi and give your friend a hug. You can go back and sort of think about the time where this girl, this is actually my story, you can't think about it, I'm telling you about it right now. How this girl, she came up to me in the hallway and was like, hey, how's it going? And I was like, fine. And she grasped my hand and then we just talked for a little bit and it took me a second, but then I realized like 15 minutes later, right when the panic started to set in, that like, wait a second, I was not completely betrayed by this completely normal interaction between two people. Like, this was completely normal. There was nothing strange or absurd about it. She probably thought it was normal. But for me, that was something insane. The fact that somebody had touched me and I hadn't freaked out completely. And that was probably the catalyst for me trying to reach out more and more. Finally, there's something that I would like to tell you because I think it's really interesting. It is about elephants and how elephants grieve their loved ones. They grieve their loved ones, and so up to 7 years or more, they'll feel sadness, grief, a distinctly human emotion that that we all feel. And sometimes I feel like the elephant, who's just like the animal who's suddenly inside this human world, who feels the same things, but it can't exactly express them the same way. And in my opinion, this feeling of sadness that maybe comes with reaching outside of your bubble sometimes is actually a product of love. And love is the greatest combatant to loneliness. So sometimes it's okay to reach outside of your bubble, to get that sort of drowning feeling and not having your bubble touch charm and everybody kind of like looking at you and being like, why is she hissing at me right now? I don't understand. And it's okay. It's all right. You can take that moment to breathe. And you can take that moment to think back and figure it out. So there's three things. This is why you should care about my personal space bubble and why it matters at all to you, like in any way, shape, or form. The first thing is that sometimes it's okay if your bubble pops. Sometimes it's all right. It's okay. Everything will turn out fine. And The other thing I would like to tell you is that you just sometimes need to take a minute to breathe with an E. I promise that was an accident. And it's okay. You can take that moment to yourself and go past what you think is the normal thing to do. Maybe you like have a personal bubble of your friend group or your society or your worldview or whatever it is, whatever your personal space bubble is, it's okay to just sometimes enclose back into that part within yourself and think for a moment and just be like, okay, I'm fine. And then the third thing is that if you reach, the world will reach back. It will. Just give it a minute. Just give it a minute. Thank you.